Uh, Firstly, before I start, I want to thank the panel members. And I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Professor Parik Goswami. I'm head of the Department of Fashion and Textiles at University of Huddersfield, and I'm also Director of Technical Textile Research Center. Now, today's discussion is about tools for agile manufacturing. So, what we'll do at the beginning is we'll keep the word tools to one side, right? And we'll start with the word agile manufacturing. So, to best of my knowledge, agile manufacturing, the concept started from like 1985 with Michael Porter's model of competitive advantage.
Mm.
And what Michael Porter actually said in a very simple language that either be the cheapest you can or find some kind of differentiation. Now, we are all living in the UK, and probably being cheapest is not our selling point. So
Mm.
we have to be really good at what we do. And agile, what is agile? In a simple definition, if any of the people in this panel want something which is personalized, we are good enough to produce that as quickly as possible and send that item to you, right? We can discuss the complex academic definition for hours, but that's not the point. The point is how to simplify the production and give it to our client. And I'm so lucky that I am joined by four people in my panel who exactly does that as a day job, right? So we will start the introduction of every colleague first, and then we'll go into the discussion. Could I please start according to my screen now with Gresha?
Yes. Hi. Yeah, so I'm a textile designer and weaver, and also researcher. And I've basically spent the past 4 years redesigning our outdated supply chains, as you just mentioned, by essentially reinventing the way clothes are made. So I founded Hopin, and we research and develop a way of using 3D weaving technology to create an entire garment in close to one step. So essentially, we're creating the structure of the garment in the weaving of the fabric, which merges two massive manufacturing processes, the textile making and the garment making, into one step. And the goal of 3D weaving garments is that it will reduce production steps, therefore reducing time and, most importantly, a lot of waste. So we're trying to limit off-cut waste, eliminate fabric dead stock, and that whole idea of dead stock, and use existing jacquard loom technology. So we're bringing production local to the consumer. So I'm focused on UK consumers at the moment, partnering with a jacquard manufacturer called Estos Weaving in Lancashire. And also with this FFF project, I've partnered with the 3D Weaving Innovation Center at the University of Leeds. And yeah, that is helping me basically research and develop this 3D woven production method that will eventually be sold to fashion brands as kind of like a low waste, localized, more efficient way of producing their clothing.
That is great, Gresha. Thank you very much. Can I go to Amanda next, please?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Amanda McLaren. I'm the Managing Director of AW Hainsworth, which is a 239-year-old traditional textile mill based in Leeds. I've spent 33 years of my career in a manufacturing engineering environment, the last 15 in textiles as a sector, where I was, for a number of those years, the Managing Director of James Healing Company, which was a textile testing manufacturing organisation. Now I'm in the mill and I'm running AW Hainsworth as Managing Director. And actually, when I think about the theme of agile manufacturing, I think about my 33 years in industries, 5 different organisations. That was a common denominator in every single one of them. How to focus on rapid response to the customer, and thinking about that speed and agility, giving you that competitive advantage, which is, the essence of what agile manufacturing means. So, this is not a new theme. It's a theme I've certainly lived with in my professional career for 2 or 3 decades at least. So, it's a very strong theme. It's something that I think is defined even further now with the demands on sustainability for businesses, focused on people, planet and profit, as we all know, being the three major pillars. You're looking for that value add, you're looking for that reduction in downtime, you're looking for that efficiency of your people and the retention of those people to give you future skills, and for multi-skilling purposes to make sure you can be as agile as possible, especially in manufacturing and a vertically integrated business like this, where moving people around is really important, breaking down those bottlenecks, taking away those threats, reducing those risks. You have to think in a very flexible way. And for me, that's the definition of agile manufacturing.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And basically, I have the privilege of knowing Amanda for quite a long time now, and I've never seen anybody more passionate about the industry than Amanda. So thanks for joining the panel. Nathan, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Nathan Hughes. So I'm the founder and the MD of a company called Restrap. We primarily make luggage and accessories for the cycling market. So I started in 2009, 2010 with making pedal straps for bicycles out of recycled car seat belts, hence the name Restrap. That's where it all sort of begun. When I started, it was myself and one sewing machine in a spare bedroom. And then since then, we've grown to a bigger factory. Now we're in Leeds. We've just over 70 people working in the factory. We produce just over 12,000 products a month now. So it's been a big change from the early days. So, it's a theme being agile. I've had to do that quite a lot considering the big changes and steps we had. It was only 2 years ago, we were 20 people. So we've grown by 50 in the last 2 years. So, we've really had to learn a lot of lessons on how to be agile and systems and how to be flexible, as Amanda said, which has been key to our growth.
That is great, Nathan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Graham, please. And I understand you have a few slides to share as well. So please.
Oh, I think you're muted, Graham.
You're muted, Graham.
Yeah, all good.
Apologies. Classic. It's been a while. Hello. Thank you, Pat. I'm Graham Rayburn, lead designer at Albion Cycling. We're a cyclewear company based in Southeast London, making clothing focused on helping you stay outside for longer. So these are quite technical pieces, performance pieces for the outdoor. My background, had training in fashion. I spent a long time working in performance wear before spending a couple of years working in responsible design. I'm back now on performance wear. And this last couple of years have given me really interesting focus on sort of out of necessity, being able to develop products very hands-on, often in this room here, but be able to communicate them to colleagues and to local suppliers and factories around the world. So through that, I've developed a kind of a concept which takes some of the failings that I've seen in the previous systems. So I'm just going to do a quick screen share now, which shows the previous example of kind of linear design development and sample process, moving on to factory fulfillment production to the customer. And then, unfortunately, more often than not, into disposal, landfill, waste disposal. The opportunity within agile manufacture is kind of far greater, I think, as well. If you take a step back, to have a completely connected manufacturing life cycle. I've obviously got a design-centric view on this, but whereby the ability to influence and have these interventions to perfect design at the sample development stage, potentially get feedback from customers through repair and rejuvenation systems, which then feed back into influencing new designs or improving on them. Ability to plug designs into micro factory local production, scale them to bigger production, and all the while using digital virtual tools as well, flipping between the digital and analog as needed. So I've just got a couple of examples here of ways that we've been working. I'm going to show you an accessory here. It's probably easier than a garment. Looking at a new hat design, where I might start with a very, very crude, rough card mock-up that will then get scanned and turned into scanned on a domestic A4 printer, turned into a digital pattern that I can then use to cut out with a basic plotter cutter desktop thing, not much bigger than a regular printer, to start looking at, really refining my shapes, looking at the measurements, before then progressing on to initial samples, which I can make up pretty crudely, before finally having a perfect sample, a perfect pattern, digital and card, that I can plug into local production. This is a new product. We don't know how it's going to go. Let's just try it out with a relatively small scale volume that we could actually perhaps mid-season, reorder if we needed to for a local thing, before moving on to much bigger volume. And when I'm talking about this completely connected system, the ability then to be able to influence micro customization or bigger customization, say that might be for athletes, it might be an activation to get some interest. So a very quick example here of a running style we have this season, really beautiful cycling jersey, but then the ability where we get a call, can we support this event, and being able to turn these products around using very relatively simple techniques with local production for print papers, and in the studio actually be able to adapt and enhance. And as I say, I think it really comes down to the design, to be able to consider these things from all the way out through to the end of life of a product. So I think that's probably more than my 3 minutes there, but thank you so much, Barry.
Yeah.
We absolutely don't mind that, Graham, and thank you very much for that. Before I move the discussion, for the people who are listening to it, if you have any questions, please ask that in the Q&A session. I'll try to address as many questions as I can. It's actually very interesting because I realized that, Graham, for example, you are using design as a tool for agile manufacturing. I really want to visit that in a bit, but this panel is represented by startups to companies which are going on for 200 odd years. So definitely the definition, their organizational definition for agile manufacturing can differ a bit. So I'm very interested to capture that bit, along with how you think agile manufacturing plays a role in achieving your organizational sustainability goals. So could I start with Amanda, if you don't mind, on that?
Yeah, it's a really current topic. We have, as a business, we are lucky enough to hold the royal warrant, so we're able to supply fabrics into the royal household. And of course, there's an incredibly emotional link there with many members of the royal family, actually, and their passion for sustainability and their demands on their supply chain to meet their needs. And I think that's been one of our drivers to date for our sustainability brochure, which you can download from the Hainsworth website, that looks at some of the early wins that we felt we could put together as a business to underpin, the evolution of our sustainability strategy. But I do think it is an evolution. I've been on a number of panels and also courses quite recently on the topic of sustainability, and I think some of my learning has come from what they call the vectoring model, so that the kind of the direction of your travel and the speed of that progress that's needed really to respond with agility to customer needs. Certainly from a fashion perspective, and there's a number of people on the panel here that will align with this. There is high demand on supply chains for you to demonstrate your commitment to people, planet, profit as an organization, and to demonstrate you're doing those things. And I almost feel that there's been a little bit of an embarrassment around the profit bit, which is, oh, that looks kind of like not very nice, but actually the profit aspect is really quite crucial, because that is about long-term sustainability.
Absolutely.
So for us, our journey that we're now evolving into is much more around material projects. So the material projects are really kind of bringing them all together and then starting to getting them into some form of shape and direction of that travel overall has been quite interesting for us. So for instance, we've talked about solar panels being put onto the roof of our mill for quite some time, but we've kind of looked at it and come away, and then looked and come away and thought we're okay for now. But actually now we've put it into a whole framework, and we've started to look at all those different material projects. That one's coming up to number one because the price of energy is soaring, and that is a real risk to a business like a mill, where you're consuming huge amounts of water, huge amounts of energy, and that is your process. So being committed, I think, to sustainability is a driver for you to be operating with agility, because you need to do things within a reasonable period of time, depending on complexity, but also, with profit in mind, to reinvest for other projects. So, we've become very open to, how we think those projects will link to a financial benefit for the business. And then as that financial benefit is visible and very clear, we're reinvesting that into other areas that underpin that strategy, all with, agility and sustainability in mind, because they fit together. So for us, it's critical being agile and thinking with agility to drive those material projects that underpin that strategy has been really quite a good way of looking at the overall strategy and direction of the business. And we're starting to see some benefit of that now. We've got real deep dive into some of the projects where we're able to articulate the KPIs, link them back into the P&L, link them into timescales within the P&L, where we believe we'll see the benefit, and that'll allow us then to...
Hello.
She was on a good one there.
I think we lost Amanda for a second.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. We just lost you in the last bit.
Okay. So I'm not quite sure why you lost me, but I think what I was trying to probably sum up there was, by organising our material projects that demonstrate, a real link between, agile activities that drive our reduction in lead times, that drive our improvements in efficiency, that drive our capabilities to offer our end customers a much better either service or product or lead time, whatever that might be, is linked absolutely to the structure of our sustainability strategy, which is built up of a number of material projects. And I think for our learning, it's been to get that into a framework where it gives us a sense of, of travel and direction. And it's very, very open and clear within our business. In fact, we have a sustainability forum now, and people are really excited about a number of projects that, that link to that strategy.
Brilliant. But before we move on, will you agree with me that in kind of textile manufacturing, we always, yes, we had constraint, but we always has the framework to be more agile. Means if you even look at a jacquard loom, we can have the same warp yarn, but we can produce different fabrics every meter, right?
Yes, I think so. Sorry, go on, Parik.
No, after you, please.
I was also thinking, just coming back to Graham's point on the sampling, the design and the sampling side, and how you can turn that into, a much faster process, one that has got some repurpose into it, and perhaps, reduction in timelines. It's exactly the same when you're doing sampling for industry, when you're using a jacquard loom and you're challenged to create a sample. And actually the interruption in a volume-based mill is actually quite significant. So thinking about the digitalization of that and being able to share something, virtually is a real driver. Decades back, a mill wouldn't have done that. Now we're looking at that technology. We're working with Leeds University, and we're thinking about how that will evolve going forward. The easy bit is the design. The difficult bit is the tactile nature of the sample. But, there's some very interesting ways to do it. So I think the opportunities just evolve, don't they? They don't stop.
That is
technology drives it,
Absolutely. So jacquard, for example, can be used kind of as a tool for agile manufacturing. we established that, and that nicely brings me to Grisha. When
Yes,
Grisha,
yeah,
you
well,
are
I'm very focused on the jacquard loom. That is the core of
absolutely.
Weapon. I mean, yeah, I looked at a jacquard loom and I basically saw this can make garments, which is even more agile.
I actually want to go into that. Do you
Yeah.
think that using the 3D weaving technique along with jacquard gives you more flexibility to be agile? And if you can
Yes.
focus on that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one, a jacquard loom takes up less space on a factory floor than traditional cut and sew garment manufacturing. So you can actually onshore a lot or reshore a lot of production, but also the agility of combining production steps, so combining the making of the fabric or, yeah, the making of the garment with the making of the fabric means that you reduce production time quite significantly, which reduces costs, which reduce waste, but you're also able to, the reduction in time, you're able to really respond quickly to consumers. So it pairs well with kind of like an on-demand approach. So I think agility, well, for Weapon and for me, was kind of at the core of designing this production method. It's combining steps, that's the most agile that you could get.
And that actually probably addresses the problem of a lot of production waste, right?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, fabric dead stock is a huge issue, especially in the fashion industry. Fashion designers have to kind of guesstimate and forecast how much meterage of fabric to buy before they make their collection. And most of the time, because of long lead times and outsourced production, they order more fabric than they need, and then they're left with fabric dead stock. So combining the making of the garment with the weaving of the fabric basically eliminates that whole idea. It designs out waste in that specific area. But also because I think Graham was kind of mentioning as well, like I'm a designer as well, so I take a real design approach. But the idea of using design and zero waste design principles at the garment making stage also eliminates off-cut waste as well. So,
Absolutely. Thank
yeah.
you so much. Thanks for that, Grisha.
Mm.
Graham, you started, and may I say brilliantly, with saying how design can be used as a tool for agile manufacturing. Do you see that based on this discussion, you can actually collaborate with, say, Grisha and try to adopt that 3D weaving technique into this as well? So, can design and technology exist as a tool for agile manufacturing going forward?
Absolutely, and I think that's probably being cognizant of what actually is a tool. Access to communication and technology we've never had it better than, and this is a great example what we're doing here. So that ability to be able to transfer knowledge or transfer data and understanding between different people, different spaces, different techniques gets really interesting. And I think that's where also we get new aesthetics start to emerge, and that's what really excites and engages people or gets people interesting. So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah, and I think also Graham was mentioning that I kind of caught on to is this kind of idea of like rapid prototyping. So if a customer or even my customer would be a fashion brand like Graham, for instance, we use digital pattern cutting tools. So we do like rapid prototyping. So you're able to simulate a design before actually producing it and sampling it. And that is a very agile tool as well, is being able to use digital pattern cutting software and simulating it before even going into the sampling stage.
absolutely. Thank you, Grisha. That I need to ask something to Nathan. Means Nathan, we must say the way the growth curve of your company and is really motivating, right? And we are so proud that you are based on Leeds. Means my question is, from definition, it sounds like agile manufacturing actually played a huge role in that growth. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think it changes. Like I said, is we've been on quite a big growth, so we're always looking at how we can have a competitive edge against our competitors, and a lot of that comes down to getting more automated machinery or coming up with techniques that are going to be quicker, or just being more flexible in how you change your products and stuff like that. I think the key things for us is we focus quite heavily on like machines. So like you were saying with the automated weavers and things like that, because we understand if we're going to compete, we currently sell to 28 distributors worldwide. So we're competing in many markets. And we understand that, labor costs aren't the cheapest in this country. So what we need is skilled people, but high-tech machines to compete with those countries. Then it comes down to upskilling the people. So we've, put training programs in place. So we have quite a lot of young people come in, we train them here. And that means that they're multi-skilled across multi areas of the business. And then the next thing for us is space, really. Manufacturing takes up a huge amount of space. And as you said, if you can buy a smaller machine that can do the same output, that's really important for us. So much so that our fabric CNC cutters, we actually paid more money to get them made smaller, which seems like a backward step, but it saves the floor space, which is important when you're paying rent in the UK and for big floor spaces. So there's a lot of factors taken into account when we're obviously looking at agile manufacturing and how we can improve that. And then, on top of that, all you guys will know there's tons of technology, and it's trying to figure your way through what's actually going to be a benefit to the business and not just getting wrapped up in all the systems and trying to be too computerized and too automated. And the big thing, as I always say to people, is sometimes a pen and paper is the best way. So we've actually even thought about that and have that designed into the factory, where on the shop floor only our team leaders touch computers, because you have issues with computers. So we're still pen and paper in some ways, because it is still the best way.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point, is the way that the UK will stay competitive, because it's quite expensive to produce here, is technology, is through using technology that kind of combines things, or doesn't use up as much floor space. That's kind of why I focused on jacquard looms, because most mills hopefully have a jacquard loom, and so you're able to kind of combine so many steps and use existing technology, but in a kind of different way.
Yeah, it's key. If it's a mass market machine, none of the machines in a lot of the industry are mass market, but they're easier to repair and replace and things. I imagine at Hainsworth, if one of your machines goes down, you probably can't get parts because it's.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I have a vision to build an engineering excellence centre in a mill. And it sounds like a really crazy idea, but I actually know what it looks like, and it's going to give us amazing agility. And the reason that I say that is because if you look at the traditional supply chain within the UK textile sector, and how much mills are really reliant upon that supply chain, and yet they're under their own pressures, there is some risk there to businesses. So, I had a good example just a week or so ago where we were waiting for a part for a Dornier loom, and it was going to be on 6 weeks delivery from overseas. The part was going to be £250 for a small bracket. Our machine couldn't be operated. I've actually brought engineers into this mill, and we've bought a 3D printer quite recently that's quite an advanced model. And we printed that bracket, we reverse engineered it, and we printed that Dornier bracket for a cost of about £4.50 in 4 hours, and our loom was back up and running within 3 or 4 hours after it. So, I think if that's a good example for this panel, it's just think out of the box, because why do we have to do things in a traditional way, or why do we have to do things in a modern way? That is the question for all businesses. I think Nathan just answered that for his own business. So, for us, it's about giving ourselves complete control and being able to respond quickly. And if that
must have. Yeah, I think, it is currently expensive also to produce in the UK, but I think that's kind of a short-term issue. And I actually think that our supply chains and the instability that we're currently seeing will actually probably mean that it's just as expensive to have outsourced production through just the long lead times. That's going to be expensive. So in the short run, maybe it'll be expensive to produce in the UK, but in the long term, it'll be, quite competitive, I think.
Yeah.
That is actually bringing us, I think, in a completely different topic. I don't want to touch it onto it too much because that is another topic altogether. Is about the agile nature of our supply chain, not only from the perspective of the garments and clothes, but also from the perspective of our support industries, chemicals and machine suppliers. We have to think agile manufacturing as the whole ecosystem rather than just one aspect. But it's very interesting, Gresha, you mentioned that the competitiveness of UK as an entity as such. Now let's take a step back, right, and think about uh, FFF as a program, right? If you look at it, three universities are working together: Royal College of Art, University of Leeds, University of Huddersfield, along with, like, I can't remember the latest number, even 500 odd companies, to create that agility in the supply chain. What do all of you think from different perspectives that the FFF version 2 could look like? What more we can do for the industry?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say for me, the FFF project has been kind of crucial to, having the expertise that WEFA needs, just because, we are focused on a very specific technology. And so working with the 3D Weaving Innovation Center is kind of crucial to get those technicians and to be able to, have that knowledge base. So I think, yeah, FFF has been really crucial to that. And I think, round two, it would be looking more at taking innovative technology startups and providing that kind of academic support with the startup.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to address that? Version 2 FFF?
I was going to say, I think the key thing is actually connecting people in the industries as well, and possibly even going and seeing places. I remember when I was very new to the industry, what I did is I ended up ringing a lot of factories, in all sort of different sectors, not just fabrics, and asking if I could just go have a look. And I think sometimes it's those connections and looking around, you'll show people around and they take interest in one part of your business that you don't think anything of, but it gives that idea. And I think the more understanding people have of necessarily say how the fabric's been weaved and then how that's been cut and sewn, then they can design better and produce better because they have an understanding of the machinery. So I think it is really getting the full picture, like you said, but in every sector.
Yeah, the connection has been so important as well. I mean, the manufacturers, I think, especially in the textile industry in the UK, it's quite like a small knit community, but there's quite a couple of you guys. So, I had a lot of time trying to find the right manufacturer, and FFF was, crucial because, you can go to the members directory and see who, all the manufacturers and then talk to them directly.
Absolutely. I mean, what I think, and I had discussions with my colleagues as well in FFF, where I think in the next version, means this is the success of FFF is I can safely say beyond what we initially imagined, right? But I think the next version, what is organically happening is Gresha is knowing Graham, Graham is knowing Amanda, Amanda is knowing Nathan, and therefore new products ideas will come. And I think that is something that we need to think about when we think about the generation 2 of FFF.
Yes, yeah.
Could I jump in there, Parik, or just very
Absolutely.
quickly? I mean, so I'm visiting tutor at different colleges and things, and I am backing up what Nathan just said. In my mind, putting together a work experience program or an internship program for people specifically interested to go and visit these places and be exposed to then combine ideas, technologies. We need to be informing and educating the next generation of designers, developers, makers, creators. I'm a dinosaur now. I want this next generation to be the sharpest, best that there ever is, because they're going to be designing my future. And I'd say even further than that, if we can get younger people, school age, A-level GCSE, to get interested in the value of clothing, the value of textiles, and what a vibrant, amazing industry it is in the
Yes.
UK that is being so poorly, nourished at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where FFF is probably, with a long-term view on thinking in 5 years' time when these people graduate or whatever, like that's going to be where the really interesting stuff happens.
Yeah, I think, yeah, education is definitely a key point because, I'm a designer and I was thankful to be kind of taught in like a systems thinking, design thinking approach. But I think with agile manufacturing and then also circularity, which is another key thing that we probably don't have time to go into, but it requires a completely different shift of thinking about something that, from the beginning of the choice of thread or even the growing of the fiber, you have to think about the entire system and how to, design, inefficiencies out at every stage. So it requires a whole new way of thinking, which is an education problem.
That actually, thanks both of you for raising that, because I actually wanted to raise this topic about skills. I'll start with Nathan, for example. Nathan, you are growing at a very rapid pace. Do you see the skills gap as a barrier for agile production?
Yeah, so we've struggled for a lot of years, getting people into the industry. I think one thing is I think with the textile industry or any kind of factory work, it wasn't always considered as like a career path. It's, you were there for a short term. So, we've really focused on trying to put like grades and systems in and training programs and stuff. So when people come in, they see themselves here long term, because as all of you on the panel will know, working with anything, it takes a long time to get that skill set. So, and when you're turning people over quickly, that's very inefficient for your business. So, we spend a lot of time on trying to think how we can make it a better work environment, how we can train those people, trying to place people within the business and the things that they're interested naturally in as well. So, and, all of you will find that your business doesn't work without the people. So, you've got to really focus a lot on that section of it. But yeah, going back to the skills, it is something, you don't learn these skills in schools or colleges a lot of the time. So you are forced into training on site. And that's unfortunately at this stage, we've been fairly successful at it, but unfortunately we've been forced into it because there isn't any other option in a lot of these industries.
Yeah, I think when I was kind of like dreaming up the utopic, 3D woven production method, it was focused on using existing jacquard technology. But I wasn't aware of the upskilling of technicians that would be required, like even people that have been in the industry weaving textiles for like 40 years. It requires a different way of thinking to think about in a 3D weaving capacity. And so, having to do that upskilling and training is also kind of a difficult thing that we've had to now think about. Yeah.
Thank you. Amanda, do you have any suggestions for the educational infrastructure, what they can do differently?
Yeah, I mean, I've almost made it my personal mission over the last 6 months to try and make textiles cool again. In a way that, coming to work in a mill is almost not frowned upon. I feel that it comes from generations before those kids, actually. It comes from their parents or their grandparents who kind of have that perception of, you don't want to go work in a mill. Why would you do that? Actually, I think we need to send a completely different message out that is actually it's a really great place to work. If you look at traditional career paths in industry, it was very ladder modeled. You started at the bottom, you moved up, but in these last 10 years and maybe a bit longer, businesses have flattened. Businesses have flattened and they've become less hierarchical. They've become a lot flatter structure. So actually a matrix way of enhancing your career, which is going across teams and looking at different roles and different duties in a business, to me is a really interesting model for career progression. Some of it may be linked to project management. And if I think about our business here, there are so many different roles and so many different responsibilities. One different opportunity to develop yourself as an individual and learn new skills that I almost feel that that's hidden, and I think we've got to bring that to the surface. I think businesses have got to have a narrative, why should you come and work here? What is so good? What is your purpose? What is so good about working there? And it comes back to, to the generational needs and what's important as a community at work. So I think we have, as industry, leaders and key players, I think we have a massive responsibility to put some effort in, to reach out to those age groups, to tell them and show them, and to explain what that looks like. Tomorrow, actually, it's really opportune. But tomorrow I've got 15 kids from Leeds City College between the age of 16 and 18 coming into our mill. And we're going to give them a day to remember. I've even ordered chocolate and fudge for them. They've got everything on the way out.
Yeah.
But, we're going to make it, a great day for them. And we're going to show them all the things. And I've got some of my young engineers who have recently joined us, the ones who were printing 3D printing last week. I've got them lined up to talk to them. We've got a young girl who's come through from Weaving and Warping. She's now in our quality team and she's excelling. We've got her to talk to them. She's 22. So it's connecting with those young people in a way that they want to be connected with the business today, and not how they wanted to be connected with the business 2 generations ago, because that was our time, not their time.
Absolutely.
So, I think I'm probably the I'm probably the oddity, the one person that thinks that textiles is cool.
I know.
I'm obsessed. But I would recommend. I read this book called The Story of Civilization, and it basically talks about how textiles has been at the fulcrum of any technological innovation throughout our civilization. Basically, textiles have been at they invented double book accounting, and basically our financial system was built off of the textile trade and the Silk Road. And that was just such an amazing book to read. It kind of ties in technology, which is what I'm fascinated about, but also textiles, and shows the importance of textiles in our world. I think it's one of the basic needs, clothing ourselves, feeding ourselves, and housing ourselves.
I'm really sorry. We are coming towards the end of it. We can continue for another hour, I'm pretty sure. But I'm really thankful to Amanda, Gracia, Graham, Nathan for joining today. I think if I have to do a quick summary, it's kind of impossible, right? But if I have to do a quick summary, then it is established academically the importance of agile manufacturing, and we are not the first one to say that. It started from Michael Porter's theory, as we discussed. And textile industry, we know how important it is for the survival of UK fashion and textiles industry. And initiatives such as FFF, I genuinely believe, accelerating that thought process. So we need more initiatives like that, and we need more brilliant leaders like people who I got in the panel today. So thank you so much, and that kind of concludes this session. Thank you.
Thank you. It's lovely chatting with you guys.
Thanks very much, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Right, have a lovely day.
Bye bye.
Back to it.
Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Bye.
Bye.